Ben, do you think policing is broken?
Damn right, it's broken. It's broken. It's broken down at the bottom of the routes. It's broken on the middle. It's broken at the top. Everything in the police now needs to be completely ripped apart and started again. So in 2024, the police roughly consisted of 147,800 officers. There was 6,500 armed officers, and they roughly protect 69,500,000 occupants of the United Kingdom. Roughly each year is 33 million calls per year to the police. 90,000 calls are through to the police each day, and the police deemed an emergency of only 35,000 calls, but that goes up 10% each year. I'm going to throw this at you. I've just come back from Malaga, and in the centre of Malaga, Old Town, there's a lad and he's 40-year-old and he's rolling this massive spliff. It's kind of spliff that you can wave at a 747 and knock it out of the sky. It's ginormous, is this. Police roll up, and they're not the Garda Civil, the police locale, so they're obviously the smaller version. Roll up, push him in chest a few times, and he gets up and he runs off. Within 3 seconds, there's 2 police motorcycles, 1 police car, and 2 police officers on foot, all 6'2", 6'3", muscular people. Even woman that turns up's muscular. They literally rag him back neck, throw him to the ground, crowd erupts, and within a second he's gone in car and he's disappeared. Not one phone's out. Yeah. Not anybody's batting an eyelid or shouting at the police trying to attack the police, and literally he's gone. They've gone, done, and he'll be charged, he'll be done and dusted. You put that in UK now, there'll be mobile phones everywhere, there'll be complaints everywhere. Bobby will be put under cosh, which we're going to be talking about another Bobby later on. The police either need to be able to turn out to a 999 call, and that's it, or the police need to be a social service. And it's not going to be a social service. It'll never work as a social service. So if I had the power now to recharge the police and go back into stripping it out, you need to go right back. Fire brigade don't drive around streets at 3 in the morning looking for fires. Ambulance don't drive around at 3 in the morning looking for injured people. Police should be a call-out service only. 999 calls to save life, save limb, or if a crime's been committed. And that's it. That's your gradings with the police. Everyone then should have a duty of care to look after their own businesses. So in theory, shoplifting, you should have a security guard. Security guard should get hands on, pull him to your own office, and they should be dealt with there and then, because we don't have the numbers, we don't have the resilience anymore, we don't have the experience on teams, and it's all just going one way. And at the moment, from when you look at it, it's just going down shit pot. I think at the moment England's broken. Is that too far, Josh? Is that?
Well, caveat,
right?
I agree that it should be a call-out service, but I also think there's going to be an element of proactivity out there.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that, but that should be down to the officer and the officer's role of what they want to do, rather than it be the other way around. If you're MPT, and no disrespect, if you're MPT, you shouldn't be driving around streets at 3 in the morning looking for burglars. That should be firearms, that should be traffic, that should be dog units, that should be TSG, OSU. You go out on a night time. I live in Eldwick, massive burglaries in Eldwick, massive Hanois coming in Eldwick. So you go out there, you kick ass, you lock all these criminals up, and you come in next night and there's no happening in Eldwick. And then you come in and say, right, what have you had? And you say, I've had fuck all, because last night I got them all. Right, I'm not happy with your performance. If you come in with no else, you're going to be disciplined. So now you want people to get burgled.
Well, firstly, the officers are broken, 100%. Well-being, welfare, that's broken. The relationship with the police and the public is probably broken as well. And I would probably say the leadership is broken. The word leader, I think, is really probably wrongly used in the police massively, because I don't think the leaders, I think the managers, and they're thinking about the thing above rather than what's below them and how to support people.
But you not think, like I said, from that point, they get to a certain level and become businessmen and they become technically politicians. They don't become police officers, they get to a certain level.
Probably anything above chief inspector.
Right.
Look, there's going to be great chief inspectors out there, and there's going to be great superintendents, and there's going to be great chief superintendents and SLT members. However, the majority of them are thinking about the next little bit up. You don't get to that level and think, you know what, I'm done. There's always going to be something else that you want, and the reality is that you've got to look after number one. And the majority of them are not going to put their head above the parapet for the things that really matter. And that's a real shame. You know, the other thing that's broken, response policing. That's the core of everything relating to policing. Whenever you start, did you go on response?
Yeah.
First thing, you'll learn the basics of doing the job. But the sad part of it is now that you've got people that aren't very experienced, through no fault of their own, tutoring people who were coming in the job. When I joined, I had a guy that got 20 years service. There was nothing that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was able to sit next to them and learn and develop and feel as if I've got the support around me. Now, workloads are through the roof. They're carrying degrees and there's no work-life balance at all. And we wonder why people are doing 2-3 years and leaving.
10,000 people joined the police in 2024 and 9,000 people left.
You're joking?
That is down to retirement, sickness, or being bored.
It's costing us an absolute fortune as a country and as police forces. That is one of the main reasons. No one's staying anymore. Everyone's leaving.
But when I joined in 2001, when did you join?
2007.
So in 2001, you joined the police. It were an optimum career for life. You started on, I think, 19,500. Yeah, it's not a lot of money, but it was far more. I think I were earning £11,000 a year. So it were a big increase of wages. You joined for a lifestyle, you joined for a pension, you were 6 on 4 off. There were hundreds of you turning out in 2 different districts. I think you had like 30 odd on your briefing. And on my last set, when I were, before I came off poly, I think you turned out 4 on your briefing. Yeah. You were doing 200 geographical miles. It's just not working. Yeah. But there's going to be no one that's going to sit there at the top and say, right, we need to restructure this. We need to do, and we're policing like we were policed in the 30s. We're turning out like on push bikes and things like that, but the crime level is gone completely up. There was a story, did you see the one on the news the other day about the bobby that was in, I think he were in London, and they were on his rest days, and they were walking up into an arcade area, you know, like in a city centre, and the 2 people on the bikes, and they pulled out machetes and stabbed him because he tried to intervene.
No, I didn't see it.
Crime's gone through the roof, and we don't have as many armed officers. We don't have any, back to what we'll say in other ones, with as empty on skills as tactics. There used to be weeks of training. It goes down to like a couple of hours now. The equipment that we've got doesn't match the violence of what we're issued. There's 2 and 5 between officers, so you can put a code 0 out and you might be working 6 minutes rather than 30 seconds. So all the thing that we stood for even in 2001, I'm not even going back to 90s or 80s or 70s, everything that we stood for just doesn't exist anymore. And it's policed by superior officers that think it is 2001. Think we've got all these numbers. And do you remember when it came up, just that little bit more? I can't remember what slogan was. We do more with less. When government cut us. And I think that's what's the breaking point of when it first started going downhill. I think from then on, it's been appalling ever since.
Well, I think the other problem is as well that the demographics that we're dealing with have changed massively as well. We're getting called out more. We're dealing with more incidents than police have ever have. And I think the problem that you have when that happens is that you're in a position whereby we've got probably 3-4 officers on a team, and they're stretched, they're carrying workloads, and they're going out. Single crewed, by the way, as well, which I've got my own opinion. I don't think that should happen.
No, never.
That for me is just you're asking for problems, especially in the current climate whereby, like you said earlier, people are getting phones out every 2 minutes.
Assault, yeah.
To me, you've got to have a bit of support around you. And if you've got 2-3 years service, I'll tell you now, I wasn't ready to do a single crewed when I had 2-3 years service.
No, I totally agree on that.
I probably struggled at 18 years doing it. And when you go out and all of a sudden you've got someone with a camera phone in your face, one, it's very intimidating. And people will say, well, it's just a phone. No, it's not actually, because people are doing it because they want to try and catch you out. They want to try and get you into a little bit of trouble. And the problem is that there isn't the support there. We've had it highlighted over the past couple of weeks whereby the support isn't there. And how can people and how can the officers go out there and think that they're going to do the right thing when they know that, sadly, right across the country, there's stories coming out left, right and centre where officers are being let down massively. I have multiple DMs every single week from officers that are currently being investigated. They've been investigated for nearly 12 months. They have no support. They have no help, and they're basically thrown under the bus massively. And then we wonder why people are walking away, or when they are cleared, which I'd probably suggest that the large majority are. What tends to happen is they walk away anyway because they've lost the trust, and they realise that you are just a bloody number.
And then as well, mud sticks.
Yeah.
And so you can't tell me that there's not a file somewhere with a number on and saying racist, homophobic, liar, or whatever it is, and stamped on a file, and you think, I've been found, nothing happened, this complaint I've got is false. Yeah. It didn't even happen, but someone somewhere has put a mark on you, because we know those people where things have happened at work and they've always had these marks on it, and you can tell. I won't go into this officer at the moment, but there's one that I've known has been suspended for, I think it's 8 months, and he wasn't even there at the time, but they suspended him. They can bring him back to work, but they're just refusing to bring him back to work because they want to hold face, they want to stand there, but they don't know what to do. Like you said, they're scared of their own shadow. But I can understand if the officer comes in drunk. I can understand if the officer's caught nicking a load of cannabis or cocaine. I can understand if the officer's caught slapping someone about, that sort of thing. Yeah, they need to be fired. They need to be sent to prison. That's without saying. But when an officer comes in and someone somewhere has made a complaint that's doesn't hold any water, and they say, right, we're still running it, and you're like, well, what are you running it for? We're in Mallorca at the time that happened. Yeah, we're still running it. It goes on for 9 months.
Well, the caveat to that, I suppose, as well is, yeah, okay, do your investigation, but support me. Because what you're actually doing is you're taking the complaint and then going, well, we'll put you over there. We're not going to look after your mental health. We're not going to look after your well-being at all. And we probably aren't going to keep you updated, actually. But be ready, because at some point it's going to happen. How we expect it? How's that fair? How is that right in any other organisation in the world? It just wouldn't happen. But in policing, for whatever reason, it's just accepted. And you know, you might get people listening to this that maybe are relatively high up and they're thinking that doesn't happen. It does. Yeah. Because every single week I had 3 messages yesterday from people that are currently under investigation who are in a position whereby they've said, I've had no support, I've had no update, no help, nothing, and I'm struggling. And I don't feel that I'm part of something now. I feel like I've been cast aside and I'm being left to rot. And that should never be happening. We should be supporting people.
So it's gone 2 ways now as well, then, isn't it? So we're not doing the service we need to be doing for the general public because there's not enough of us. Half of the public that we're meant to be serving don't make the complaints, and the other half that we do serve, and no disrespect, they're the shit element of society. They're the ones that mourn, they're the ones that take, and then we're bending over backwards for them. Then we're not looking after the officers themselves that are in the job. They're struggling mentally. And then the supervisors are meant to be doing a job. The leaders, like you said, like you said, leader, that's when you just imagine all hell's broke loose and there's a nuclear war and stuff like that, and they turn around to this bloke and go, you're our leader. Well, I look at all these leaders and I'm thinking, I won't fucking follow you. Yeah. You've got no respect. You don't know what you're doing. You've got a badge, but we're respecting the badge and not the person. Yeah. And it should be the other way around. We should be respecting the person. It should be leading us the right ways, doing the right things and for the right reasons, for the police, for the general public themselves, and for the reputation of what we do, because people need to be looking at the police and either being, I'm not saying scared, or knowing that the police are here to do a job, and you don't muck about, let them do the job, let them get the burglar, and once they've done that, fine. Or the police are here to help. I'm on the edge of a bridge, I'm going to jump, police have turned up, let them do what they need to do. Give them the credit they need and let them crack on with what they're meant to do.
I think the biggest problem, though, is that the public know that, sadly, the police isn't going to support their officers, because it's really evident. Every week there's a story that comes out of a police officer that has been, you know, accused of this or something's happened. And when you look at the actual reason why, you kind of think this can't be right. We surely cannot be, you know, looking at police officers like this. And the problem when you have a public that see that, it's no wonder we're in the state we are. I saw a video yesterday of a police officer, I think it was in Hampshire, and there was just somebody trying to put a phone in an officer's face. Yeah. And the officer has tried to move the camera from his face. And the first thing that was said, you've just assaulted me, carry on. And you just sit there and you think, so you think it's okay to put that camera in my face when I'm trying to do my job?
Yeah.
And the reason why you've got the camera is because you want to try and make something of nothing. And we wonder why officers are getting assaulted more. The reason why officers are getting assaulted is because they're scared to use force.
Yeah.
They're worried about doing it because they're scared of what the consequences are. The majority of people have got families that they've got to look after. And it's a sad state when people are willing to either get assaulted or take the abuse because they're worried about, well, what if I say this and somebody might have a phone out and the job won't support me? I'm not saying that we've got to defend the indefensible. I'm not saying that because sadly there's bad apples, but there's bad apples in every society, in every walk of life. Dr. Harold Shipman, prime example.
Yeah.
All doctors were not terrible, but he was a bad apple.
And that lady, the nurse with the babies,
Yeah.
I can't remember, is it Leah, something like that, or what's she called? Like her as well. And it's same with pilots, it's same with everybody. There's bad people in every walk of life. But what we've got to do is got to look past that and see the humans behind the badge, humans behind the uniform, and support them everywhere we can. In news this week, there's been a minimum of 3 officers' suicides, one in West Yorkshire alone. It just goes to show that the pressures are there.
Yeah.
The pressures are there, no matter what. There's pressures in all sorts of walks of life and stuff. But officers need to be given the support that they deserve.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you get things like that happen, what it highlights is that sometimes people look at the uniform and think that it's like a shield, that you shouldn't feel certain things. I'd probably argue that it makes you more susceptible. It makes you more susceptible to the trauma that you see. And I think there's still a perception whereby people think that it's a sign of weakness to put your hand up and say, you know what, I need a little bit of support. And for anybody watching, I'll tell you now, it definitely isn't.
Yeah.
The bravest thing that you can do is put your hand up and say, you know what, I need some support. The problem we've got, sadly, is that we've lost trust in the organisation.
Yeah.
Because we know that firearms officers, I know firearms officers that are struggling right now, they will not say they're struggling because they know that if they do, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to have the gun taken off them.
Yeah.
And when somebody's in crisis like that, the last thing that they need is their routine instructor that's keeping them going removed. But that's what policing does. Roads policing officers are, I'm struggling a little bit. Oh, well, you can't drive then.
I would say I had mine pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can that possibly be right? How about we just turn around and go, you know what, we're as an organisation, we're going to support you to try and help you overcome what you're dealing with.
Yeah, 100%.
But instead, what we do is we go, well, that's a problem. And we've got to protect the organisation, actually, instead of protecting the individual.
Yeah.
And it's shameful. And I get probably, I'm not joking, 20 messages, DMs every single month from people saying exactly the same. I am struggling. Are you willing to listen? Yes, I am. Why aren't you reaching out at work? Because I'm scared of the consequences. I don't trust the organisation. I had this conversation. If you make well-being more relatable, you will get a better response from people. But sadly, there's too many stories where people are putting their hand up, asking for help, and they're not getting it. And the other issue is, how can we possibly have a police service that it depends on where you work, depending on what level of support you get? Because there's officers in certain forces that say it's really, really good, which is absolutely fantastic. But then you'll get an officer in another end of the country that goes, yeah, it's absolutely awful. How can that possibly be right? And it shouldn't be happening.
It shouldn't be. So I'm going to ask you one last time then, is the police broken?
Well, based on what we've just said, it's absolutely broken, yeah.
It's damn right it's broken. So see you next time for some more questions.
Yeah.